Welcome, everyone, to our Student Debt Crisis Center Major Overhaul Workshop. We know a lot is happening, and we want to cover all of everything that is going on and that you can expect beginning July 1st, which is tomorrow. So today's date is June 30th, 2026, and we do expect to see, major changes to the student loan system begin tomorrow. So who are we? I'm Natalia Abrams. I'm the president here at Student Debt Crisis Center. We are a national advocacy organization with nearly 2 million supporters calling for fundamental reforms to student loan policies and an end to the student debt crisis once and for all. And today we're joined by our team, Sabrina Ashley, Sarah Saris, our executive director, Sabrina Calazans, our lead borrower expert, and Ryan Correa, our communication and policy associate, who are here to help you. I want to thank our funders at the Annie E. Casey Foundation. We always thank them for their support to bring these workshops to you, but want to be clear that the information and opinions presented on this workshop are those of us, coming from like the Department of Education and other experts, and do not reflect those of the foundation. Okay, so some quick reminders. Please use the Q&A function to ask your questions. That we have a team here to answer questions, but questions about your student loans will only be answered in the Q&A section. We will do our best to answer as many questions as possible. Any information shared on today's clinics pertains to the current guidelines and rules as of today. So today is June 30th, 2026. If you're viewing this later, because as the next point, you will all get a recording about 24 hours after this workshop. And so just important to note that student loan policies have been changing often. And so you always want to check back to make sure the policy is still the same. So today we are going to cover federal updates, including the changes going into effect tomorrow and the changes for people on the SAVE plan or SAVE forbearance, which is saving on a valuable education, and the end of that. Repayment options for moving forward for the different groups. If you are a parent borrowing, if you're a SAVE borrower, if you're going to be a new borrower that takes out loans after July 1st, we are going to cover all of that. How to calculate your payments and identify your income-driven repayment credits. That's extremely helpful for people that are looking at repayment plans that have previously been in them, and more. Quick disclaimer, we are not financial counselors or attorneys, but we are advocates and experts here to help you. All right, let's get into it. So major changes are set to be implemented tomorrow, which is July 1st, as a result of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBBA Act. This was passed last year into law. We've been talking about it a lot if you've been on previous workshops of ours, but the changes are set to begin tomorrow. Changes will include new lending limits for students and parents, a new tiered standard loan plan for loan holders that take out even a single loan or consolidate post tomorrow, July 1st, a new income-driven repayment plan, which is called RAP, or the Repayment Assistance Plan, and there is more. We are also seeing, this just happened a couple weeks ago, changes to auto pay and an interest rate deduction. So the Department of Education announced a temporary 2-year interest rate deduction of up to 1% for student loan borrowers that enroll in auto pay by September 30th of 2026 of this year. Eligibility is limited to direct loans originated on or after July 1st of 2012. So you have to have a direct loan that was issued after July 1st of 2012 and depends on maintaining full on-time monthly payments. I will say that we've heard a lot of issues with auto pay when it comes to student loan borrowers. They can take out incorrect amounts. If you forget to recertify, you may get charged the standard. So while there is this 1% temporary deduction, as an advocate in this space, I would urge you to use caution when it comes to autopay. We're also seeing, and this is more positive, a change to the pay as you earn, which is a repayment plan that will still be around until July of 2028, 2 years from now. The partial financial hardship requirement for the pay as you earn or payee plan will be removed starting tomorrow, allowing borrowers who previously did not qualify for the plan to qualify. Other eligibility requirements still remain, and Sabrina will go over that shortly. But long story short, many more borrowers are eligible now for the pay plan. And especially if you have less than 2 years before you finish your whole IDR or income driven repayment journey, you may really benefit from enrolling in the pay as you earn plan. Okay, let's get into updates on the SAVE plan. We know a lot of borrowers are enrolled in the SAVE plan, or borrowers that reach out to us. So we know that the SAVE plan has ended, and that has ended due to recent court rulings that have effectively ended the SAVE plan. As a result, and many of you have shared your notices with us, the Department of Education has started notifying people that the SAVE plan and forbearance will end soon. To date, to our knowledge, the Department of Education has sent out 3 notices, and they have increasingly seemed more alarming. As you can see here, this notice to Sabrina with that red triangle telling you you have to get out of the SAVE plan. But the truth is, these are not the final notices. We expect final notices from your loan servicer. So that's a Mohia, a Nelnet, Ed Financial. That should start going out tomorrow. We do not know exactly how many people receive them, but it's very important to note when you receive that notice. The earliest anyone needs to exit the SAVE plan is September 29th. So while the Department of Ed has been sending around all these scary notices, in a separate court proceeding last Friday, the Department of Education acknowledged that no one will need to leave the SAVE plan until September 29th or later. So those people on September 29th is anyone that gets a notice from their loan servicer tomorrow, because you will have, as you can see at the end of this slide, 90 days. So right now, you've been receiving those notices. No immediate action is required at this point. We strongly recommend exploring what used to be called the loan simulator, and just this week was changed to the repayment plan estimator, I believe, and I may be getting that wrong, so my folks will share that in the chat. They've just changed the name. Servicers on July 1st will begin emailing people with the formal notice to exit the SAVE plan. At that point, you have 90 days from the date of the notice. If you do not take action, you will be placed into a standard student loan plan, either the existing standard, the old-fashioned standard, or the new tiered standard plan, which it could be up to 25 years. So after you get your notice, July 1st or later, you will have 90 days. If you benefit from not making a payment, we completely understand that many borrowers are going to wait closer to that 90-day mark to exit the SAVE plan. And just another reminder that no one needs to exit SAVE before September 29th of this year. So just to give you an example of a scenario of somebody on SAVE, we have Brian, who was on SAVE, and his monthly payment was $100 a month. He has a household size of 4 people, married with 2 kids, and a loan of $100,000 with combined income. These are Brian's options when he exits SAVE. And as you can see, if it goes from highest to lowest, that new income-based repayment and pay-as-you-earn are going to be Brian's most affordable options. But if Brian takes no action at all, in that 90-day period, his payment will go from what he was paying on Save of 100, and frankly, everyone on Save has been in a loan forbearance, so from zero to spending $1,161 per month. We would strongly encourage Brian to take action and enroll in an income-driven repayment plan using and I just saw it in the chat, the repayment calculator that's at the Department of Education, to see what options are best for you so you don't get stuck paying that super high amount that many people cannot afford. So if you're on the SAVE plan, we want you to be really careful with misinformation. We're hearing a lot of different problems from borrowers, that servicers are telling borrowers they need to consolidate to get out of SAVE. We're also hearing wildly different dollar amounts for the plan. Some borrowers were quoted $50 when in fact they had to pay, then they were quoted $750. Then they found out as long as they reapplied, it was only $225. So there's so much misinformation out there. As much as it's so time consuming to get on the phone with your loan servicer, it can take hours. It can often be valuable and save you hundreds of dollars to ensure that you are in the correct repayment plan at the correct amounts. So find out what repayment plan options you qualify for. There is the repayment calculator at the Department of Education, but we also strongly encourage you to use the EdCap tool to make sure the numbers are correct from the Department of Education's repayment calculator. And I know my team is sharing those links right now to estimate your payments across the existing repayment plans. Make sure, this is very important point too, that your contact information is up to date at your loan servicer website. They are the ones that will be sending those formal notices, and that is when your 90-day clock starts. And again, whether you switch out of SAVE right now or closer to the deadline is entirely up to you. But if you're somebody that has been trying to get public service loan forgiveness credits or income-driven repayment credits, and that's important to you, you may want to consider switching out sooner rather than later so you can start receiving credits again. All right, so we know that's a lot, and we're going to continue to cover repayment plans and other options more in depth for SAVE borrowers and for all borrowers looking to get into a repayment plan. And you're going to hear a lot more information through this whole workshop. So we're going to start with some of the basics, like where do you find your student loan information? So really important right now to familiarize yourself with studentaid.gov. You want to make sure to type in studentaid.gov directly into your browsers. There are scams, and sometimes you can end up at the wrong website. So that's just a tip from us. Make sure at studentaid.gov, along with your loan servicer website, that all of your personal information is up to date. Email address, most important, phone number, and snail mail address. If you're having trouble logging in or resetting your password, you can call the 1-800 number below or go to the link below at studentaid.gov. So once you log into studentaid.gov, you're going to scroll down to the My Loans section, which is this section over here that I'm circling, excuse me. And here you can find your current balance and your repayment plan. So it says your repayment plan right here. This borrower is on a save plan or the save forbearance. And then you can click to view your loans more in depth. So that's a really important tool at studentaid.gov. Now let's go over the differences between studentaid.gov and your loan servicer. So when applying for a repayment plan, you can do that at studentaid.gov. All repayment plans, and especially the income-driven repayment and repayment and the RAP plan. Your loan servicer, you can be applied to be put back into the standard plan or into the graduated or extended plans, which we call the fixed plans. But with your loan servicer, you cannot apply for an income-driven repayment plan. You can verify the payment amounts. They can help you a bit with it, but you can't do the application part itself. That has to be done at studentaid.gov. Now, when it comes to applying for a forbearance or deferment, a temporary pause in paying back your student loans, even though interest is accruing, that cannot be done at studentaid.gov. You have to call your loan servicer to have that implemented. In addition, you cannot make a payment at studentaid.gov on your student loan. That can only be done through your loan servicer's website or other ways that you have made payments in the past, like auto pay. You cannot view loan servicer communications at studentaid.gov. You can view that through your loan servicer's website. At both studentaid.gov and your loan servicer, you can find your loan balance. Only at your loan servicer, you're going to find a detailed repayment history and information going, backwards you should be able to view the entire history of your payment history. And then to identify your loan type, and this matters, and you'll see as we get into the repayment plans, if you have a direct loan or an older FFEL, Federal Family Education Loan, you used to be able to do that at studentaid.gov, but now that's only through your loan servicer website. Okay, so now we're going to go over student loan types. I started to cover that with FFEL. So let's take a look. We have direct loans. These are loans that have been around for a while, but starting in 2010, they were the only loan type. So if you have received a loan in the past few years, you have a direct loan, you don't have to worry about it. But we know so many borrowers that come on our workshops have been borrowing that, unfortunately for decades. So it's important to go over this. So direct loan, only type being issued right now by the federal government. These are all federal loans. They have direct subsidized, direct parent plus, direct consolidation, and there was direct graduate plus loans. These will no longer be issued going forward. Then there were Perkins loans. They stopped being issued by the schools and institutions around 2017. Lastly, there are these older loan types, the FFELP or Federal Family Education Loan Program loans. They were issued by the federal government. They were held either by the Department of Ed or commercially held, and they completely stopped being issued around 2011, I believe a little bit sooner. If you have a FFELP loan, you're going to see something at your loan servicer website like subsidized Stafford. That word Stafford immediately tells me that you have an FFELP loan. Or if you see those, 5 letters in front of your loan for Parent Plus, Consolidation, or Grad Plus. Again, these are no longer issued and can be consolidated into direct loan, although be careful with consolidation right now going forward, and we will get into that a little bit more. So what is your repayment goal? Many borrowers, I believe almost 8 million people have been on the SAVE plan. You haven't had to make a payment. So now we have to think about what is our goal, whether you're a new borrower, existing borrower, or somebody coming off the SAVE plan. So do you want to pay off the loans in full? So a payoff plan, that's the standard loan plan or one of the fixed plans. These plans offer no loan forgiveness, and eventually, whether it be 10 years, 25 years or more, you will pay off your loan balance in full. Or are you looking to get some type of loan forgiveness? And that would be an income-driven repayment plan. That could be the public service loan forgiveness plan with an income-driven repayment plan. This, you'll make smaller payments over time. And yes, while you'll accrue interest, it's hard to say not to worry about it, but you don't worry about it because at the end of that 20 to 25 to 30-year period, you have the remaining amount forgiven and canceled out if you are on one of the loan forgiveness pathways. So understanding your repayment options, when were your loans taken out or most recently consolidated? So which system are you going to go into? So if you have loans and you have not taken you don't plan to take a single loan out after tomorrow, then you're on the track of the current repayment system. You only have loans before July 1st. You do not plan on borrowing or consolidating in the future. If you take out a new student loan, or you consolidate after tomorrow, July 1st, 2026, you are looking at the new repayment system and all of these major overhaul changes we are going to be discussing today. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Sabrina.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, let's get into the current repayment system or the repayment options for folks who only have pre-July 1st, 2026 loans. So we have our breakdown of the different repayment options here. And the standard plan is up at the top. That's the plan that everyone is going to be kind of dumped into when they enter repayment if you do not enroll in a different plan. So the standard plan can also be called the level plan sometimes on your servicer website. And these typically have higher payments. Then we have the fixed alternative plans. And under these plans, we have three different types: extended plan, the graduated plan, and then the extended graduated plan, which is a combination of the previous two. Then we have income-driven plans. And this is like a category of repayment plan, and we have several types under this as well. So we have income-based repayment, or IBR. We have income contingent repayment, or ICR. We have pay-as-you-earn, or PAY. And then we have the repayment assistance plan, or RAP, which will become available tomorrow, July 1st. So a little bit more about the standard plan and the fixed alternative plans. The standard plan has fixed monthly payments and it's based off of your loan balance. If you have unconsolidated loans, you're going to be on the 10-year standard. And then if you have consolidated loans, you'll be on the 10 to 30-year standard plan. There are more affordable options for borrowers who are struggling, including the fixed alternative plans and the IDR plans. Moving to the fixed alternative plans, we have the extended plan, which has fixed payments and a timeline of 25 years. It's also only for balances above $30,000. Then we have the graduated plan, where the payments increase every 2 years, and the timeline is going to depend on your loan type and your balance. And then we have the extended graduated plan, again, a combination of the previous two. So the payments are going to increase every 2 years, and it's going to have a repayment timeline of 25 years. It's also only for balances above $30,000. And the most important thing about all of these plans on this page is that there's no loan forgiveness for anyone enrolled in these plans. So by the time you get off of them, you will have paid off your whole loan balance, including any of that accrued interest. So now we have income-driven repayment plans. So first of all, what is IDR forgiveness or income-driven repayment forgiveness? This is available after a certain number of payments have been made while you're enrolled on an income-driven repayment plan. The repayment terms on these plans range from 20 to 25 years, and the new RAP plan is going to have a 30-year repayment term. When we talk about IDR plans, we talk about credits or payments, and we use them interchangeably. So when we talk about those, we mean that one monthly payment equals one IDR credit. And you'll see what we mean by those in just a couple of slides. The thing about an IDR plan as well is that you cannot make multiple payments per month to receive multiple credits. So it's just 1 month equals one credit. So on an IDR plan, you're going to have your loan balance, and by the end of it, your repayment term, it's probably going to be larger than what you originally borrowed. And that's because the monthly payments on these IDR plans typically don't cover the interest that accrues each month because it's based off of your income and your family size and not on the loan balance. So that remaining balance that you're watching kind of balloon with that interest is actually going to be forgiven at the end of your IDR journey. A note here about that new repayment plan, the repayment assistance plan, or RAP, is that interest is going to be waived as long as the monthly payment is met on that plan, and we will get into the details on all of these plans. So what happens when you reach the IDR threshold? There is no application to fill out when you reach that threshold. The Department of Education is going to let you know that you qualify for IDR loan forgiveness once they're ready to discharge your loans, and you're going to receive a 30-day notice to opt out of forgiveness. If you want to have your loans forgiven, you don't have to take any action during those 30 days. If you don't want your loans to be forgiven, then you should follow the directions in that notice to opt out of the loan forgiveness. The most common reason for opting out for loan forgiveness is the fear of the tax burden. A note at the bottom here too, we are aware of borrowers who are currently eligible for IDR forgiveness but have not been notified yet. The department is slowly notifying folks and discharging their loans. It could take anywhere from weeks to months to hear from them. There's a huge application backlog. There's reduced staff at the Department of Education to begin with. So everything at the department right now is kind of moving extremely slowly. So there are tons of benefits to an income-driven repayment plan, starting with the monthly payments that are based on your income and family size and not your loan amount. That means that your payments are going to be more affordable than something like the standard plan, and for some people, the lower end of the graduated or extended graduated repayment plans, and that could help prevent delinquency and default. IDR plans are particularly helpful for lower income folks, unemployed folks, or anyone with a reduced income. If you have little or no income, payments can be as little as $0, and those qualify as a credit, an IDR credit towards forgiveness. And you can recertify your income at any time. So if you do experience unemployment or a financial hardship with your income, then you can recertify and lock in a lower monthly payment for the next 12 months. One note, because we are having this new RAP plan come into play, is that the lowest minimum payment on the RAP plan is going to be $10 a month instead of $0. So when we talk about, we could go back one slide. When we talk about recertifying or updating your income, this is something that you should do every 11 months, which is what we recommend to avoid running into any deadlines. And this is when you update your income and your family size so that your servicer can update your monthly payments for the next 12 months. Again, one payment equals one IDR credit. And once you reach that required number of credits under your plan, your loan becomes eligible for IDR loan forgiveness. One final note about the ins and outs of an IDR plan is that most periods of forbearance and deferment do not count towards IDR credits. Okay, so a little bit about IDR and taxes. I think we've seen a couple of questions about this so far in the chat. So starting with tax filing statuses, if you're married and file separately, this is where your spouse's income is not going to be considered in your monthly payment calculation. If you're married and you file jointly, this is where both incomes are taken into consideration unless you're now separated or divorced, or maybe you can't reasonably access your spouse's income. Then that's the only time that Ed would not factor in your spouse's income or loan debt when calculating that monthly payment. Another important thing about IDR loan forgiveness is that it is now being taxed as income. And then one final thing, the IRS integration has resumed on the IDR application. So if you do provide consent, the Department of Education can pull your income information from last year's tax filing for the online application. But you still have to manually recertify your income every 11 months. So I talked a little bit about this earlier, but IDR or income driven repayment is that umbrella term. It is the category and the name of that overall program. And then we have these 5 plans that kind of fall underneath that. So income based repayment, income contingent repayment, pay as you earn, saving on a valuable education, and then the WRAP plan, which is sort of an IDR plan, sort of not an IDR plan. And we'll get into that in a second. So this is the breakdown, and this is where you can see where those credits come into play. We'll just go over a couple of these. So, for example, we have the pay plan up at the top. This plan is going to use 10% of your discretionary income. It's going to require you to pay for 20 years or have 240 IDR credits before you reach that forgiveness threshold. Then we have the eligibility requirements for pay, which is direct loans, but not Parent Plus loans. And they need to be issued before July 1st, 2026, and have that new borrower determination. Then we have other plans like ICR, which is going to take a larger chunk of your discretionary income. It's going to have a bit of a longer repayment term. And then you can see that all direct loans issued before July 1st are going to be eligible. Okay, so let's get into kind of the details of each of these plans. So again, we have the pay plan. You can see all of the breakdown there on the left-hand side. An important thing that I want to point out is that it is going to phase out by July 1st, 2028 at the latest. You can still access this plan, including enrolling in the plan up until then. But definitely keep an eye out for any updates about when that would phase out, if it does phase out any earlier. And then there is a new borrower definition that is attached to this plan. So you must have your loan issued on or after October 1st, 2007. And then you also must have received a disbursement of a direct loan on or after October 1st, 2011. And then another important thing here is that the pay plan has had a partial financial hardship requirement, but that is no longer going to be in effect beginning tomorrow, July 1st, 2026. Next, we have the income-based repayment plan. There are 2 different types of this plan. We have the old IBR and the new IBR, or sometimes referred to as IBR 2014. And that just depends on when your loan was dispersed. A common question we get about this plan is, will IBR be phased out? No, it is not going to be phased out. It will remain an option for borrowers with only pre-July 1st, 2026 loans. Next, we have the ICR plan. On this plan is going to phase out, just like the pay plan, by July 1st, 2028. And then a note about this plan has been known as the quote Parent Plus loan plan. So if you have a Parent Plus loan and it's consolidated into a direct consolidation loan, then you can enroll in the ICR plan. A relatively new update that has happened is that you can now enroll your consolidated Parent Plus loans into the ICR plan, make 1 payment, and then you can actually enroll them in the income-based repayment plan if that plan is lower and works better for you as well. Okay, and then last in this string of plans, we have the repayment assistance plan. And this is new. It's not going to be available until tomorrow, July 1st, 2026. And then this is a little bit different than the other income-driven repayment plans, which is why we say it kind of is one and kind of is not. Instead of using your discretionary income, it is going to use 1 to 10% of your adjusted gross income. It's also going to have a longer repayment term of 30 years, which equals 360 credits. So, who qualifies for this plan? It's going to be eligible for all direct loans except for Parent Plus loans, regardless of when you took out your loan. We can also see a breakdown here on the right-hand side of the different um, income ranges, then what percentage of your income would be used to calculate your monthly bill, and then what the ranges for your monthly bill would be. A couple of notes about WRAP is that, again, $0 payments on this plan are not going to exist. The minimum is going to be $10 a month payments, even if you're unemployed or you're experiencing some type of reduced income. The WRAP plan is going to waive any interest not covered by your monthly payment, and it will reduce your principal by up to $50 if the payment does not. Another note is that the payment is subtracted by $50 per dependent, but the minimum payment on WRAP is still going to be $10. And then a new development is that payments made under WRAP will not count towards income-driven repayment loan forgiveness for borrowers who enroll in WRAP and then later switch back to IBR, ICR, or PAY. So again, this is another reason why it is sort of an income-driven plan and sort of not. Okay, quickly a note about Parent Plus loans. So if you have unconsolidated Parent Plus loans issued before July 1st, 2026, you are going to be eligible for the standard plan and the fixed plans. So those extended graduated and extended graduated plans. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any IDR plan options for you. If you have consolidated Parent Plus loans that were issued before July 1st, 2026, then you have access to the standard plan, those same fixed plans, and then you have also access to income contingent repayment and income-based repayment. Okay, so student loan repayment options for folks who have loans issued or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026. So if all of your loans are from before July 1st, but you even take on just one loan or you just consolidate even one loan on or after July 1st, 2026, tomorrow, you're only going to have access to the new tiered standard plan or the repayment assistance plan. All of your loans pre and post July 1st would be subject to these options, so you can't split them between the two repayment systems. And then an important note is that Parent Plus loans cannot access repayment assistance plan. So a little bit about the new tiered standard plan. We haven't talked about that yet. This is beginning tomorrow, July 1st, 2026. It's only available to borrowers with a new loan issued or consolidated on or after that date. This new tiered standard plan does not qualify for PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, and Parent Plus loans issued or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026 are only going to have access to the new tiered standard plan. There's not going to be any options for IDR or PSLF. So you can see the repayment term and the amount that you borrowed. This new plan is based off of your loan balance and it has a repayment term of up to 25 years. So if you have anywhere between 0 and $24,999, you'll be paying for 10 years, 25 to $50,000, you'll be paying for 15 years, 50 to 100, 20 years, and then over $100,000 in loans, you'll have that 25-year timeline. Okay, so for Parent Plus loans, issued or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026, you'll have access to the new tiered standard plan. You will not have access to IDR plan options, including WRAP, and there is not going to be PSLF since that new tiered standard is not a PSLF qualifying plan. Okay, that was a lot of information. And I know the Q&A is very busy. I'm gonna pass this off to Sabrina, who's gonna go over calculating different payment amounts.
Thank you, Sabrina, Ashley, and thank you all for your patience as we try and navigate the Q&A here. All right, so let's talk about how to calculate your payment across different repayment plans. So there are a few different ways. As Natalia mentioned earlier, there is the repayment calculator, which is previously known as the loan simulator. That can be found at student. You can also call your loan servicer and try and figure out your monthly payment amounts that way. We are hearing that it is taking up to 4 hours in some cases with Mohila, and it varies by servicer, so it may take a while. Just be patient. And if that is not the best option for you, please explore the other options if you cannot wait for that long. And then there's also the EdCap tool, which we've dropped the links to both of those in the chat, but we can also drop those for folks as well. And so there is no guarantee that these estimates provided are 100% accurate, but they are just ways to help you figure out what options may be best for you. Now, we do have a few screenshots here of what they look like. So we're going to start off with the repayment calculator. As I said, I recommend going to studentaid.gov, logging in, and then at that top toolbar, toggle over the loan repayment and click on repayment calculator in the tools and calculator section. Once you click on that, you will then see the tool. So right there, you would click on get started and we would get right into things. Now, it's going to ask you a few questions. It's going to ask the most important one to figure out the next steps here. Has your information changed since you last filed taxes? If your information has changed, select yes, my information has changed. That is going to navigate you through a lengthier series of questions. It's going to ask you, about your income, how it's changed. It's going to ask you about your dependents, AGI, all that sort of thing. You're going to be required to fill in a little bit more information. However, if you select no, my information is the same, it's then going to prompt you to answer just a few questions. Here we see which filing status did you use on your last tax return. That's going to be one of the questions. And then on the next slide here, it's going to ask you if your family size has changed since the last tax return. If you select no, you're then going to see this pop up that says we're securely importing your information. And then it's going to bring you to see results. Once it brings you here, we're going to see the results. So in this case here, it tells the person we'll start on the left-hand side here. It tells you your current repayment plan details. So what the person is currently enrolled in. In this case, the person is currently enrolled in the SAVE plan and it shows their monthly payment. And it shows us then moving on to the results here that the lowest monthly payment amount is the graduated repayment plan that would be starting at $196. And as Sabrina Ashley mentioned, as it's graduated, it consistently increases over time. And then some of the other options are income contingent repayment plan. Right there for ICR, you'll see that at the top, there is a red bar. And in this case, it says plan ends on June 30th, 2028. If you go through this tool and you see that red toolbar at the top, you can still apply for those plans. It's basically warning you that for the income contingent repayment plan and the pay as you earn plan specifically, those are going to be phased out by July 1st, 2028 at the latest. So just keep that in mind. Another thing for you to take a look at is in the top right corner, you see it says PSLF off and consolidation off. Those are filters that you can play around with. And if you select PSLF off, it's going to then show you just your PSLF qualifying repayment options. And if you select consolidation off, it's going to show you what your options would look like if you consolidated your loans. If you are considering any of those options, just keep in mind that consolidation is extremely risky right now. So please weigh the pros and cons before applying. But if we go back to the results here, you see that it tells the person that they qualify for the ICR plan at $271 a month. And then there is the IBR or income-based repayment plan at $301 a month. All right, and if you see at the very bottom of that page, actually, sorry, one more thing to point out on that previous slide. At the bottom, it says view more options. And then if you go to the next slide, it's going to show us what the other options are and what is going to pop up. So when we clicked on view more plans, it then shows this person that they also qualify for the standard repayment plan, and they also qualify for the repayment assistance plan or the RAP plan. At the bottom, you'll see that it says that they are ineligible for the pay plan, for the tiered standard plan, for the extended graduated plan, and for the extended fixed plans. So again, going through this tool, it'll tell you what the different options are. I encourage you to play around with it a little bit. You can play around with those filters at the top. If your income has changed, you're going to have to manually input all of that information. And so again, just be prepared to do so. But overall, this is fairly similar to the loan simulator if you've gone through this before. It just seems to be a little bit more streamlined. I'll also say that the website is, because of all of these changes and the changes being implemented tomorrow, the website is likely to be undergoing maintenance in the next few weeks and months. So if you go to student.aid.gov, if you see a red banner at the top that says the website is currently going through maintenance, you can't use it, just keep that in mind. Come back later that day or the following day, and then you can try and go through these tools as well. All right, so the other tool that we talked about today was the EdCap New York tool. This tool can provide payment estimates, but it cannot tell you which plans you qualify for. So you would go in, you would put the information such as your loan balance, the annual interest rate, the adjusted gross income, your household size, dependents, and from there it would then show you your results, as we can see on the following page here. And it will list out the different plans. So you'll see the income-based repayment plan, the pay-as-you-earn plan, the income contingent repayment, and the repayment assistance plan all listed out with the specific monthly payments, the income percentage that they're using to calculate your payment, the forgiveness timeline for your loans, and then some additional notes that you can keep in mind. Again, the RAP and the new tiered standard plan will become available tomorrow. If you are interested in applying for any of these plans, you would have to go back to the studentaid.gov website, which is where you would go to submit an income-driven repayment application to have your loans processed and enrolled in the IDR plan of your choosing. All right, so as I said, you would go back to studentaid.gov, you would submit your application there. A few things for you to have on hand. We recommend having all of this because it is the best thing to do so you can get through it quickly. Have your permanent and or mailing address on hand, your family size information. If you do not opt into the IRS integration feature, you will need to manually upload income documentation. So you'll need to choose one of the following. It can be a W-2, a pay stub, an employer letter certifying gross income, a bank account statement, an interest for dividend statement, or something else to document that. And you also must know what plan you want to enroll in. In the past, if you've applied for multiple repayment plans, you may have remembered that there was the lowest monthly payment option. That has since been removed from the application, so you must select the plan. Now, I saw this question a few times here in the chat. What is the processing timeline? So for IDR applications, those that are opting into the IRS integration, we're seeing that it's being processed more quickly compared to the manually the income that is manually documented. So if you want to buy yourself a little bit of time, you may want to consider doing manual documentation. But if you want your application to be processed quickly, IRS integration may be the way to go for you. Now, when you submit your application, you should be placed into a processing forbearance for the duration of the processing. Once it's been submitted, and you can call your servicer and demand to be placed into one if they do not place you into one. The processing forbearance will only last for the length of the time needed to process your forbearance, your application. So if you submit the application and it takes 5 months to process, you should be in that forbearance for the duration, for the full duration of the 5 months. But if it only takes 2 weeks, then you'll only be in forbearance for 2 weeks. And then something else to consider is that if you've submitted an application requesting the lowest monthly payment option, or you applied for SAVE, or your application is still pending and you submitted it in July of this, or excuse me, in March of this year or earlier, you may need to submit another income-driven repayment application. There is a good chance it will be tossed out or it's lost. So we do recommend going to studentaid.gov to apply for a plan. All right, another question that we're seeing is a lot about IDR credits and how can I find out how many I currently have. So let's talk about a trick that we use to help you find that information. Now, we are going to send this information to you in the follow-up email that goes out 24 hours from now, so that you can access it, because if we drop it here in the chat, you will not be able to copy it and it's going to give you an error. So for you to check how many qualifying payment accounts you have, you would log into studentaid.gov. You must be logged in. You would then have to paste this specific link into a new tab. And then you can click on the small box at the top that says pretty prints to make it easier to read. If you don't see the pretty print option, that is okay. Essentially, what this is doing is pulling from your information at studentaid.gov and compiling it in a way that is a little bit easier for us to untangle. And I will note this is not guaranteed to work for everyone, but it is a helpful tool if it does work for you. So let's take a look at what it looks like on the next slide here. All right, so you see that this first photo here it's a jumbled mess here. You see that pretty print in the top left corner. If you click on that, it will then show us the right-hand side, which is then broken down a little bit easier for you to read. However, again, if you don't see pretty print, that's okay. We can still try and untangle it. What we look for is type, followed by the plan name. Then we look for the qualifying count. That tells us how many payment counts you have towards that specific plan. Then we look for forgiveness required payments, which is how many payments you would need to reach on that specific plan to reach loan forgiveness. And then there's forgiveness remaining payments, which is essentially how many payments you would need to make additionally in order to qualify for loan forgiveness on that specific plan. And if we go to the next slide here, we'll see an even more zoomed in version of it. So if we're looking at the ICR example here at the top photo, you see that in this case, the person has 54 qualifying payment counts. If you look at the forgiveness required payments, that's how many credits, 300, you need to reach until for you to qualify for loan forgiveness. So with that math in mind, this person needs to make an additional 246 payments. You can only make one per month, that counts, to reach loan forgiveness through IDR. Now you see right beneath ICR, you see IBR and IBR 2014. As both Natalia and Sabrina Ashley said, there are 2 versions of the plan and you only qualify for one. So if you see in this case here, if you're trying to do this on your own, this person at the top version of IBR, the older one, it doesn't say 2014. It says they have a qualifying payment count of 0, but it says that they have 300 forgiveness remaining payments. If you then look at the IBR 2014 version right beneath it, it says that the person has 54 qualifying counts with 186 remaining. That gives us the indication that the person likely qualifies for the IBR 2014 version because they've made payments. And so that gives us the indication that on that specific plan, they would qualify for loan forgiveness. So again, this is just a trick that we have identified that helps you to figure out how much time you have remaining. I see a question here in the chat. What does null mean? That does not apply here. We don't know specifically what it means, but it says null for all borrowers. So just keep that in mind. All right, I know that was a lot and we're getting to the end here. We still have a little bit to cover, so I'm going to kick it over to Ryan to bring us to the borrower scenarios.
Hello everyone, my name is Ryan. I'm going to be going over changes in action. So just talking about some borrower scenarios so you can get an idea of what upcoming changes will mean for your options for student loans going forward. All right, so our first scenario here is about loans issued before July 1st, 2026, which is tomorrow. So our example is Maya, and Maya took out loans for grad school in 2021 and is now entering repayment. So she has a household size of 1 because it's just herself. Her loan amount is $100,000 and her total income is $80,000. So as you can see on the right, there's a table of her options, the different repayment plans she can enroll in, and then the monthly payment amounts that she would have to pay depending on which plan she's on. So for Maya, the most expensive plans would be the income contingent repayment plan and the standard plan at the bottom of the table. And her cheapest one would be the repayment assistance plan in the middle, which is her lowest amount, which is considerably lower than the ICR and standard plans. So we really encourage borrowers to go onto the repayment calculator that previously known as the EdCap tool, and I'm sure we'll drop the link for that again in the chat to determine which plan would be the most affordable for you and fits your needs the best, as there are different monthly payments depending on your situation. And then just as a note, the repayment assistance plan will become available tomorrow, and the interest rate used in calculations is 7%. So in our second scenario, Adriana has loans issued before July 1st, 2026, and she took out student loans and entered into repayment in 2013. Her household size is 2 because she's married with no kids. Her loan amount is $60,000 and the combined income is $40,000. So just like the last scenario, you can see her options on the right. So her most expensive repayment plans are the ICR and standard plans, and her most affordable one is the repayment assistance plan. And the repayment assistance plan is available starting tomorrow. So just as I mentioned before, it really does depend on your situation, which is why we encourage you to use the tools provided to determine what makes the most sense for you. And then our third scenario is loans issued after July 1st, 2026. So Alexis plans to take out student loans in the spring of 2027. His household size is 4 because he's married with 2 kids. His loan amount is $90,000 and his combined income is $150,000. So since he's taking out loans after July 1st, 2026, he has 2 options for the repayment plan, the new standard or the repayment assistance plan. So really, as we mentioned before, it depends on your situation. And both of these plans will become available starting tomorrow. And then just the same as before, the interest rate used in calculations is 7%. And our scenario 4 is Parent Plus loan changes. So Liam has consolidated Parent Plus loans that are enrolled in the income contingent repayment plan, also known as the ICR plan. He's working towards a public service loan forgiveness and has 60 public service loan forgiveness credits. So his repayment plan options are the standard plan, fixed alternative plans, income-based repayment plan, or the income contingent repayment plan. So the fourth scenario, just going on about the Parent Plus loan changes, he's planning to take out a Parent Plus loan for his son in the spring of 2027. If he takes out even one loan, the new tiered standard plan will be his only repayment plan option. He will no longer be able to pursue public service loan forgiveness because the only plan that he qualifies for is not a PSLF qualifying plan. So that would be the new tiered standard plan. And now we're going to go over additional forms of loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge. So speaking about public service loan forgiveness, also known as PSLF, it's a bipartisan program that was started on October 1st, 2007 that forgives remaining loan balances of public service workers. 120 payments must be made, which is 10 years worth, and the time required for application approval. Payments are cumulative, not consecutive. PSLF is not a repayment plan, and PSLF is tax-free at the federal and state levels in most states. And then, so the income-driven repayment plan plus the public service loan forgiveness can give you the maximum benefit on having affordable payments and also getting your loans forgiven. So going over what qualifies for PSLF. So the loans that qualify are direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized, direct grad plus, direct parent plus, and direct consolidation. And then the repayment plans that qualify are the 10-year standard plan, the ICR plan, the pay-as-you-earn plan, the income-based repayment plan, and then the repayment assistance plan. And then the employers that qualify are all levels of government, 501c3 nonprofits, and other critical forms of public service. So some additional forms of loan forgiveness and discharge are total and permanent disability discharge, which provides full forgiveness on your federal student loans if you are totally and permanently disabled. So borrowers must provide documentation from either Veterans Affairs, Social Security Administration, or a medical professional. And then on the right, we just have some additional forms of loan forgiveness and discharge that you can look into if you think it might apply to you. So we have teacher loan forgiveness, Perkins loan forgiveness, unpaid refund, borrower defense to repayment, closed school discharge, false certification, and death discharge. So what folks can do right now, you can know who your student loan servicer is and have access to your account on their website. And be sure to save any communications or documentation you've received from your servicer, as well as print, download, screenshot, and save any information that details how many IDR and PSLF credits you have. And then just as a general warning about debt relief scams, scams typically involve offering a loan consolidation or debt forgiveness in exchange for a fee, or claiming to be the Department of Education with promises of loan forgiveness, or including bait and switch urgent language, such as immediate loan forgiveness. If you refinance your student loans with a private lender, you will lose access to all federal student loan benefits and programs. And then if you have any issues or complaints and or questions can be submitted through your representative's offices, through their casework tool, state AG offices, local or state student loan ombudsman, your servicer website, through chat and messaging functions, phone or email, as well as the Department of Education's Help Center, with that link pasted below. And then if you want to stay involved and continue getting these updates, you can sign up for our mailing list, or you can visit our website, studentdebtcrisis.org, sign up for our mailing list, as well as follow us on social media. So we're at debtcrisis.org on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. All right, and I'm going to kick it back over to our Executive Director, Sabrina Ashley.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan, and thank you so much, SDCC team, for presenting today, sharing all this important information, and answering as many questions as we can in this Q&A. I know that there are a lot of unanswered questions, so I do just want to say that if you have a question and we did not get to it, you can always find us at www.studentdebtcrisis.org. We will send that in the follow-up email. You can hit the little chat function and then you can submit your question there. It comes to us as an email and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. You can also view the recording that we're going to share and all of the resources in the follow-up email that we will send 24 hours afterwards. And Natalia dropped it in the chat, might get buried, but if you have been a victim of a scam or seen a particularly bad one recently, you can reach out to us at info@studentdebtcrisis.org, and we would love to hear that information. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day.